Hello, everyone. So today I want to talk about my concept of time and soul. Now, my thinking is heavily influenced by both philosophers and theologians and scientists. My own combination of ideas is my own, but I draw heavily on Hinduism because I am Hindu, but it is an open culture, so you don't have to believe any set rules of dogma that exist. You don't have to follow even the Bhagavad Gita, which is called the Hindu Bible. It's an open culture of sharing. So I've based on other Hindu thinkers and scientists, and there's a lot of scientists in Hinduism, and many yogis call themselves scientists because they use the human body as a tool to experience greater things and experiment. But combining philosophy, theology, and science, I have my own kind of unique view on this. But it is mostly influenced by Hinduism. Keep that in mind. That open culture of sharing. Now, I'd like to say first that many people, along with myself, view time as a flat circle. It's not more dimensional than basically beginning and end. It has kind of a course that can be easily followed and is basically uh, introduces a dimension to reality that is fairly two-dimensional, if that makes any sense. Now, matter is confined to this flat circle. It is caught up in this flat circle, this whirlpool, and it must follow time. It must follow cause and effect. It must follow uh, its general course of decay, creation, decay, and eventually transference into either a new material form, new energetic form, energy being, matter being another kind of energy, and transform into something else that we would see as something else, but really everything is connected and everything is a part of the same thing in my viewpoint. But matter is caught in this flat circle that eventually ends in the middle. And there is something that transcends this flat circle. Most people's view of time is this two-dimensional. Even if they don't understand the flat circle, they view time in this two-dimensional way. And to better explain how most people view time as a single line, where it has a beginning and it has an end, and there is no third dimension to it. It just simply starts somewhere and ends somewhere. And Hindus often believe that time is cyclical. It's time itself goes through cycles. Matter goes through cycles. Consciousness goes through cycles. And as long as Big Bangs keep happening to a lot of Hindus like myself, the cycles will continue. As long as basically all matter and energy, matter being an extension of energy, until it's all perfected, it has perfected itself, these cycles will continue. And that's the purpose of the cycles of time. And what do I mean by perfected? I mean that every single atom has to achieve liberation after being attached to consciousness, because our understanding of consciousness is usually just human-based. But animals are conscious. Every single atom of material that we usually just think as lifeless is conscious. And plants are conscious. And at the very least, they are a part of consciousness. There are instrumental forces in the universe that are so vast we can only imagine them. We can't really see them at this time through science. We can only imagine the vast consciousness of a land or a planet and its tendencies, because we don't really understand consciousness yet, in my viewpoint. And that's why we only view life as we understand it as being conscious. But matter is caught in this whirlpool, and as a result, we see the beginning, the decay, and the end of certain pieces of matter and energy, and view it as basically the end of that piece once a planet dies out, once a sun dies out, once it's dispersed. But really, it's just a transference within the same body that is the universe. And I believe in different dimensions. I believe that there's different kind of bodies in every dimension. Now, when I say body, I don't really think like an anthropomorphic body. I think more of a non kind of a gaseous body, I guess you could say, a non-solid body, kind of a tendency towards attraction that exists between everything in a universe. Everything has a relation to everything else in the universe. That's how time exists. Now, what transcends this flat circle for me is soul. So I'm going to go ahead and make this mark right through here. It's a U, basically. And that transcends the flat circle of time. The soul, to me, knows everything. It knows what will happen. It's not bound by our immediate conception of time, our immediate disability of relying on time in order to understand events. It knows the beginning and end, and it knows where it's at and its progress towards liberation, towards perfection. I think one Swami called it the anti-material particle, but in order for it to be anti-material, it wouldn't be like antimatter, because that's not true anti-material, because true anti-material, that is the soul, these anti-material particles, has to have the opposite qualities of matter, and antimatter is actually still inhibited by the same weaknesses that matter has, and it can still cancel out matter. It can still be burnt out. It can still be destroyed, and it can still and is bound by time, basically. So it doesn't have opposite qualities. It just has polarity in relation to time, but antimatter doesn't have opposite qualities. So the Swami that I read the work of, he says that the true antimatter is the antimaterial particle. Now, it's hard for us, while we're bound by time, by our understanding of time, to realize how the soul can transcend this flat circle that we seem bound in. But when we meditate, when we pray, when we look within and use our human device, that is this body, it is not just the consciousness that's using this body, it's the soul, the thing just behind consciousness. You could say that the soul controls consciousness and consciousness controls the body. It's like we're someone who's inside of a car who's inside of a jacket or a pair of clothes. And consciousness is kind of that pair of clothes, because a lot of what we experience causes us to take our consciousness one way or another and have our consciousness embrace this or that. But there's something even behind consciousness, and that's soul, in my opinion. Now, these are just some basic ideas that I'm throwing out there. It's not my whole understanding of time and soul, but I just wanted to give you a basic understanding of how I think of time and soul. And I hope it intrigued you at the very least.